Hey YouTube, what's going on? Welcome to another Pretty Boy Bat Rep, and this is Dragon's Den Day 1, Round 1. Really excited to get into these, and we were all so thrilled. This is the first tournament we've ever hosted as a club, and it's been quite some time since we've had a grand tournament in the Northeast. So, really excited to get into this one. Now, as you know, if you followed my other battle reports after Buckeye, I've decided to retire the Triple Giant list, at least for a little while. I've played for 3 tournaments, I want to try other lists. I'll probably play with a couple of my other armies over some other tournaments. But for this tournament, I stuck with Orcs and Goblins, but I tried a different list. I was really just curious to see how some of the other units worked. Some units I haven't played with in a long time, a couple other units I've never played with, and I felt it was also something I should do as Orc and Goblin ACS, just to see how these different units worked. There were some changes to Born to Fight, which is a special rule for Orcs and Goblins, and the Great Green Idol get a redesign, so I wanted to try those things out. So I'll go over my list real quick. So I've got pretty much my typical general setup. With the extra points, I was able to give him the Troll Ale Flask, so he's got a bit more punch. He's a pretty good all-around character. He can fight rank and file and other lords fairly well. Then I wanted to switch my magic up, so Twitch made a reappearance, but this time he's rocking Thaumaturgy instead of Witchcraft. I like the ability with the magic mushrooms to really force through a couple of comets in the first couple turns. And Thaumaturgy has some really strong magic as well, so he's rocking that. And then I have the Magical Heirloom for an extra spell, and I gave him the Rod of Battle. So with the Hereditary spell and the Rod of Battle, I can pretty much almost guarantee that I'm going to give a boost to my unit's hitting power, which is pretty huge for Orcs and Goblins, and you'll kind of see how it synergizes with a couple of the units that need to hit. In core, I'm not doing any Ed Bashers. I'm trying just a big, fat unit of common orcs with spears, bows, and the Greentide Banner. The Greentide Banner gives them fight and extra rank. I wanted to see how this works out, because Born to Fight now works that you get +1 strength and AP in the first round of combat, and for every combat that you're steadfast. So it doesn't matter if you win or lose combat, if you outnumber the guy, basically, you keep the +1 strength and AP. So I figured a big unit of common orcs would really benefit from that. They're going to be strength 4, AP 2. In the first round, if you charge them in the front, they're going to be AP 3, with just a ton of attacks. And then with the Great Green Idol supporting, they'd be able to reroll their 1s to wound. My general is going to go in this unit to give them extra punch. I think this could be a pretty solid close combat brick. I then took 20 common orcs, heavy armor, shield, crossbows, and musician. I've always liked this unit. Obviously in other lists I don't field them because they can't keep up with the rest of the list. But with this one I've got a bit of shooting, so they provide nice range threats, they're a scoring unit, and they got a 4-up armor save with parry, so they can usually take a charge if they have to. And then I took a bunker, 20 common goblins with a musician, bows, and shields. So they get 5-up armor save, parry, if they're in trouble, but mostly they're just a bunker and they provide a little extra shooting. And then in the special category, I got my 2 units of 5 Forest Goblin Raiders, the Spider Rider guys, for some chaff. And then I went with 8 Cave Trolls. I haven't played with Trolls in a long time, but Cave Trolls have 4-up armor plus the 4-up regen, and their magic resistance 3. So even Pyromancy is going to have a hard time getting spells off against them. And unless you have flaming attacks or the flaming standard, a lot of lists don't really have a good answer for these guys. So I want to try them out. With my magic, I can give them their hitting power a little bit better. And if I can't, they always have the Troll Vomit to fall back on. So that's a pretty neat unit. And Troll Vomit with rerolling 1s to wound is brutal. So I thought that unit, I was interested to see how they would do. I was not always happy with them in the past. And then I took a giant unit of Nashers. I've always wanted to play with this unit. I've never had the chance. When I was at Buckeye, I picked up a couple of really nicely painted Nashers. Now, I didn't buy 37 of them. That would have been extremely expensive, but I picked up like 8 or 10, something like that, and then I have some Nasher Dashers and some other things to act as nice unit fillers. So I'm trying them out. Agility 4 is awesome. Really helps me out with elves and warriors, things like that. And there's just so many of them. You can't quite get through them. They can go on a flank on their own. Lots of benefits to that unit. And then the return of the Git launchers with Orc Overseers. So they get large, so I don't block myself when I'm shooting. Good accurate war machines. And of course, rounding out the list, I'm trying the Great Green Idol out with the Battle Standard Bearer upgrade, so at 18-inch range, and it gives him a little extra combat res, which is pretty nice. So we'll see how this fares. Now, I was called out for a grudge round 1 of Dragon's Den by the infamous Joe Finlayson, and there he is. This is if you don't know him, this is an ETC guy for Team America. He's a really good player. We've actually never played each other, though, so I was looking forward to this. You can actually see in the back Gene Phelps, Mr. Wargaming from the balconies, playing my good friend Phil Carl in their own grudge match, round 1. Now, Joe is typically a Saurian Ancients player, but he switched up his list. He's trying Sylvan Elves out. An actual Sylvan Elf list, mind you. It's not just a Tree Forest list. It's a Sylvan Elf list. Good old-fashioned shooting and avoidance type style. And Captain Ryan Capps, the new captain of Team America, challenged Joe to try to make a double elk list work for Sylvan Elves. So we're going to see how this goes. Thoughts before the match, and I'll kind of talk about just some other caveats of this game. There were list reviews and talks beforehand, and Joe was convinced that he was going to have a hard time against me because I outnumber him, and I have a lot of shooting as well. And I could understand that, but he was really worried I was going to outshoot him, and going into this game I knew that wouldn't be the case. So I'll kind of talk about my pre-battle plans when I go over deployment. The other thing to know about Dragon's Den is while these are normal games, there is an extra way to capture objectives. Fitting with the theme of dragons, each player gets a dragon egg, and during deployment you put the dragon egg with one of your scoring units. So if that scoring unit's able to get into your opponent's deployment zone with their dragon egg, you get an extra battle point. And if you're able to kill your enemy's unit that has the dragon egg, you also get a battle point. So you could potentially get 22 points in these games. So that's just something to keep in mind. Alright, so this is deployment. We are playing, obviously, the diagonal deployment. And then the objective is King of the Hill. So he chose that hedge-looking wall in the center of the board. He wants to defend that, and I'm going to defend the ruins. And you can see there's a little marker there. So on his side, on the left, he has a unit of archers there. I think those are actually sentinels. Yeah. He has a unit of 10 sentinels, which are the archers that have poison, and they've skirmish. And in there, his Medusa-looking model is actually an Elk Lord. It's one of his Elk Lords. They're pretty flimsy. They only have 3 health points. They have pretty poor armor. It's like 4-up armor save, and then one is a 5-up ward, the other is a 4-up ward save. But they hit like a ton of bricks. They have like 8 or 9 attacks. They're super high strength, AP, all this stuff. So he's hiding out with them. And then there's another unit of 10 sentinels up front and center. And then in the forest, in the back, he has 2 units of 14 archers. And they both have the standard of discipline. So they get to reroll their panic tests because he has no BSB in this list. Behind them, it's hard to see, but behind them in the forest, he has a unit of 8 dryads. And in there, he has his general, who's an adept out of divination. And in one of the archer units, he has another wizard who is a master out of druidism. In the forest, which is the forest he placed, he has a unit of 6 wild huntsmen. And then over on the other side of the impassable terrain, he has another unit of 6 wild huntsmen and another unit of 8 dryads. that Dryad unit has the Dragon Egg. And then we'll go over my deployment. Oh, I totally forgot on my army list I also had a scrap wagon, so I couldn't leave that model at home. So on the left I have my scrap wagon. I have that giant tray of just unit fillers is my Gnasher herd. On the left flank, I'm basically just going to push up with them as hard as possible and try to get into his units. I got the Forest Raiders behind them. I got one Git Launcher on the hill. My Great Green Idol's hiding behind the hill because he does not like 20 poison shots. So he's going to try to... He'll just sit back there and use his leadership bubble for the time being. I got 20 crossbows dead center. Behind them is my Goblin unit with my Wizard in there. Got another Git Launcher behind them. Then to their right is my big unit of Orcs. They're carrying the Dragon Egg. My General's in there. And on the right side I got my Cave Trolls and of course my Forest Goblin Raiders. Now, like I said, there was a lot of talk before this game. There was some trash talking going on. There was some speculation. Joe was worried that I was going to kind of hurt him at range, which I definitely have the potential to do. But here's the issue. I outnumber him. So it is true that every elf I kill is obviously more valuable than every model he kills. But he has Druidism, so he can raise the guys back and then hide the unit as soon as they get depleted. And he's also going to stay at 30-inch range because all of his bows are 30-inch range. And he is obviously using the Force for cover. So at best I'm hitting him on 6s or 7s. I know, besides sitting back and just playing for a draw, which is not going to happen, I'm going to have to get him into combat to win the game, which I can definitely do, but that means I'm going to have to entice him and bait him into some charges. And that reason being is simply because I don't have the speed. I just don't. The one unit I can be aggressive with, and you'll see in this game, is with the Gnasher herd. So that's something. But the Gnashers obviously can't do all the work on their own. So this is how the board looks like. And I actually ended up dropping to take first. So this is what turn 1 moves look like with Orcs and Goblins. Scrap Wagon moves up aggressively. Gnashers move up very aggressively. They're not afraid of anything that's over there. The Forest Goblin Raiders are just kind of hanging back to protect my flank. The 2 units in the middle, did I move them up? It doesn't look like it. I think they just pretty much sat there. They'll take some pot shots at probably the Sentinels in the middle. My Orc unit, I think, pretty much stays still. I moved the Trolls up into the ruins, enticing him with the Wild Huntsman, if I can't shoot them, to charge through the ruins into the Trolls. I think this would be a good combat for me. One, he probably will lose a couple in the ruins, and then, yeah, he might do a lot of damage on the charge, but I'm going to be steadfast as long as he doesn't kill 6 Trolls, which I don't think he will, and just grind them down. And then you can see my Spiders are prepared to deal with his Wild Huntsman on the right. I'm going to go back a couple pictures. So on the top right, you can see he put his Dryads and his Wild Huntsman there. I knew from deployment, just the way that the table looked, he was going to put one of those units there. Simply because the Impassable protects him from shooting, and he can pretty much go around the corner unmolested and start threatening me. So I have plans for that, and we'll see if it works out. So that's that. Alright, and in shooting, slash magic, I can't kill all 6 of the Wild Huntsmen. I kill 5. Which is really frustrating. That would have been awesome if I could have just picked up those points and eliminated that threat. Obviously, he's not going to be able to charge me now, but he can just easily hide that guy behind the impassable terrain, and I'll probably never see him again. So, that was disappointing. I forgot to mention, he has like a little flying carpet guy behind the impassable. That's representing a Forest Eagle. Alright, on to Sylvan Elf's turn 1. He comes screaming down my flank with the Wild Huntsman outside of the charge arc of the trolls, which is fine. The Dryads move up a little tentatively, and then he does some maneuvering in the center, just repositioning units, and he moves his Eagle all the way to the back, and he does hide that one Wild Huntsman. In shooting, this is poor placement on my part. My Spider Riders were out of range of my general. Leadership 6 with a reroll, they fail their panic test after he plinks off a few of them, so they panic and they run through the War Machine, but the War Machine has the Orc Overseer, so it's fine. And then he can't see the Great Green Idol, so he wants to get rid of the Git launchers, because obviously the Git launchers ignore cover and have started to try and pound him pretty early. Luckily, with the Orc Overseer, these things have 6 health points, so even with all of his shooting, he's only able to do 5 to the 1. So I was pretty happy about that. And that's about it. Going into Orc and Goblin turn 2. On the left, I don't want the Scrap Wagon to get too close to give him an out with those Sentinels, so I just ram it to the side of the board, take my DTs, maybe it'll come into play later. Again, I'm just pushing up as hard as possible with my Nashers. They're now in the field, so they'll get some cover if he wants to shoot at them, and I'll just try to Warcry them into some charges later on. I move up pretty aggressively with the Spears as well. I don't remember if I did a march or just a move so I could still shoot with them. I also move my crossbows and my other bowman up as he's starting to shrink back to keep the pressure going. And now I decide I'm going to move my Great Green Idol out aggressively because I got to deal with these Wild Huntsmen on the flank. So this is what I do over here. And I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty proud of myself for this move. Wild Huntsmen have light troops, so I can't just chaff him in the traditional sense, so I do a roadblock with the spiders. And the Great Green Idol and the Trolls are facing this way. So what you can see is he can't go around the spiders towards my board edge. He doesn't have enough room to fit through. And even if he did, he's going to eat a charge from the Great Green Idol. Now, he can snake around the spiders, but he doesn't have enough movement to snake around and get out of charge arc of the trolls. And if he tries to get out of charge arc of the trolls, he's then in the charge arc of the orcs. So at this point, he really only has a couple options. He can either sit there, which he'll be protected from my units. He can back up, or he can charge and then take some type of counter charge. So I was pretty happy with that. The Trolls and the Great Green Idol are protecting this flank, and if I can bait him in, I think I can get rid of this unit. And then in Magic, I'm able to get a Wrath of the God off right in the center of his lines, which is perfect. Hopefully that comes down when I need it to. And then I do some shooting. I kill off like 3 or 4 of those Sentinels. How many is in that unit? 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I kill off 4 Sentinels, which is nice. They pass their panic test. Alright. Turn 2, Sylvan Elves. He decides to charge his Elk Lord out of the Sentinel unit into the Nashers. In the moment, I actually asked him if he really wanted to do that, and he's like, yeah, I'll do it. Alright. What he's hoping for, because he did the math, on average I do 2 wounds to his Elk Lord. The Elk Lord only has 3 wounds. So if he rolls below average, or I roll 1 above average for the wounds, the Elk Lord's just dead. What he's hoping is that the Elk Lord will survive long enough that I'll break the unit, because I'm only steadfast on a 5. And if I break, I explode, which means the unit dies. But then in the explosion, his Elk Lord's going to die anyway. He was willing to trade the Elk Lord for the whole unit, which I could see. I could see that happening, but it was still a bit of a risk that I was surprised that he went with. Now, over on this side, he made a few more charges. So he took the bait, he charged the Wild Huntsman into the spiders, and he made a long bomb charge of the Dryads into the spiders, which that was a smart move on his part, because it really didn't matter if he failed that charge. So now he's hoping he can overrun with both units into the Trolls. And then he tried to charge the flank with his Elk Lord out of the Archer unit. Now, that was a pretty makeable charge. I think he needed an 8, and unfortunately he failed that one. So he's taken a couple risks here. The Elk Lord charge was fairly easy, but then he still needs to roll fairly well to get one or both of these overruns into the Trolls. So if these things don't line up exactly, he's losing units. But fortunately for him, when the Elk Lord fails, he's still going to be in the woods. And he's still pretty far away. He didn't fail that much. So that's how things are looking. He hides his eagle behind the impassable train. I think I tried killing it last turn and did like a couple wounds to it. So yeah, all my shooting efforts are just being frustrated by this stupid piece of impassable terrain. He starts maneuvering around a little bit more in the center, just shifting to get into shooting arcs. Inevitably, he does the last wound to the Git Launcher. And then in combat, the Nashor's kills Elk Lord. He obviously kills several of me. I think I ended up just rolling a little bit above average, and yeah, I kill him. And at this point, he's like, well, the game's over. Which I thought was a little premature, but okay. I could see how that's pretty disappointing. A couple of his charges really didn't line up the way he wanted to, and obviously he thought he might be able to get rid of that Nashor unit, and now one of his archer units is likely going to die next turn. Now, I don't have a picture of it, but I'll tell you what happened in the combat with the Forest Goblins. So obviously the Forest Goblins die. He attempts to overrun with both units, and only the Dryads get in against the Trolls. And those Dryads are the one that have his Dragon Egg. So unfortunately, he's feeding me a battle point there, and some extra points for the Dryads. Organ Goblins, turn 3. The Nashors charged his Sentinels. I thought he was going to flee from this charge. He decided not to, though, because he figured there was a chance he might run off the board. So Nashor's going there. The Scrap Wagon is now feeling safe enough to come around on the flank again. I do just some shimmying in the middle, I think, with the Orcs with Spears. I don't want to move them up just yet until my flank is secure. And, yeah, I want to, and then I can start moving up. And then over here, because his Huntsmen failed their charge, their overrun, I mean, I decide to take a bit of a risk and send the Great Green Idol in. Now, you do see there's 3 wounds on the Idol. That's from poison shooting that he did to it. I'm thinking this. It's obviously better if I charge him than he charges me, because those Cave Trolls, if they kill the Dryads, I could reform them in a way so that they can't charge the BSB. So that is an option. But I figured Great Green Idol charges in, I have D3 impact hits, I have 3 attacks. I should kill a couple of them, plus charge and BSB. He needs 6s to wound me. I think I'll win combat, and he doesn't have a BSB, and I think that I might be able to pick up the points for this unit, which would be pretty nice, obviously. And maybe in Magic I can get the Breath Weapon off on him, something like that. So in Magic, the Comet comes down, which is huge. It kills off like half the unit of archers, a couple Dryads. That one Sentinel unit is down to just 3 guys left. So it did quite a bit of damage. Good on the Comet. I don't think anything of significance happens in shooting. The Nashors eat the Sentinels to a man, so that's awesome. So now the Nashors just reform to face the flank of his army. The Green Idol does exactly what I want him to. He kills 2 Wild Huntsmen, one with impact hits, one with attacks. He's not able to do any wounds back to me, so he needs to roll a Leadership 4 Discipline test, or a Break test, and he passes it. Oh, that was just heartbreaking. Oh, I don't know if I would have pursued him or just let him go, but if I could have just made him break, that eliminates that threat, at least for a couple of turns, and allows my Trolls and like my Orcs to really push up and attack the rest of his army, and now I'm really in a tough spot. Yep, So that's what happens sometimes. You take a risk and it doesn't pay off. The trolls clean up the dryads, and they just turn to face. Unfortunately, he is able to kill one of them, though. Alright. On to Sylvanel's turn. He is running away from the Nashers, which makes sense. I'm not sure... Oh, here it is. Yeah, his Elk Lord makes now a 9-inch charge into the flank of the Green Idol, which is probably going to spell the end for him. He needs a wound on 6s, but he's just getting so many attacks, and he has charge flank to help him out. So, obviously, that's not good for me. Yeah, I think this is just the end of his movement. So you can see that he's backing up. Over here, by some miracle, he does no wounds to the idol. Now, at this point, we're actually starting to count the number of rolls he's taken, and over time, it's just astronomical how many attacks he's rolled, and he hasn't rolled any 6s yet. So pretty unlucky on his part. I really thought that he was going to kill him this turn. Luckily for him, though, I do the crush attack, obviously, on his Lord, and it goes through, but he ward saves it. So we end up just sticking around here, because I roll a minimized roll for my my supernal test. So, yeah, we just stick around. And, on to Orcs and Goblins. So, again, I just keep pushing up as aggressively as possible with those Nashers. I decide to march up the crossbows to go, like, get near that objective with the hedge. I decide to push up with the Orcs, because for now we're getting to the later turns. And even if I can't kill those units, I want to make sure I secure the objective. Scrap Wagon keeps going up. I decide the Goblins really don't have much to do. I move my mage into the Orcs. The Goblins just kind of turn around just in case something goes wrong with that combat. They might be able to shoot down the Wild Huntsman or something. And my Spiders that had rallied earlier in the game had fled earlier in the game. They rallied, and they've just been slowly moving over, seeing if they can chaff something. And I'm assuming the idol might go down this turn, so I reposition the Trolls to protect the flank of the Orcs. And again, I'm enticing him, come charge through the ruins, take your DTs, and then I'm going to be steadfast and just try to grind them down with the Trolls. So, in combat, he does kill off the idol this time, which is sad. The Spiders don't panic, though. And I get off in Magic, I think, Smite the Unbeliever on the... Yeah, I do. I get Smite the Unbeliever off on the Wild Huntsman, which will lower their strength and AP. So if he wants to charge in, he'll only be strength 4 against the Trolls, which will help with their survivability. So on his turn, again, he's taken the bait. He needs to get some points. He charges in. I think he loses... I don't know if he loses anybody. No, he doesn't lose anybody or take any wounds from the ruins, which is unfortunate. He charges the Elk Lord on the end. I know it's wonky the way it's set up, but it was just hard to balance the units. But he's not set up to overrun into the Spiders. He's setting himself up to overrun into the Orcs. Now, in his Magic phase, he has a few spells that are in range. I'm really only concerned about one thing. And that he does have Spirit of the Wood, which means he can put my Trolls in a forest. And the reason I don't want him doing that is because then he would take away my Steadfast. So he does, I think, Summer Growth, and he raises back 2 more Wild Huntsmen, which stinks, but I let it go through. And I save up all 5 of my dice to stop his 4 dice from Spirits of the Wood, and I fail. Which really sucks. So now the Trolls are screwed. In the rest of his movement shooting, he finally brings out the Eagle to chaff up the Nashers, and he's just trying to shoot as many of those Nashers off as possible, and you can see he's doing quite a good job of it. In the combat, he blows through the Trolls. I think he loses 1 Wild Huntsman, and that's it. He tries to overrun with both. The Wild Huntsmen fail. The Elk Lord gets into the flank of my Orcs, which is annoying, but honestly it's fine. On my turn, I can just feed him a champion, and then make a decision from there. I can get spell buffs off. I can then reform to face the front and entice his Wild Huntsman to come in, and if he does, I'll kill them off. And then might be able to pick on his Elk Lord and just grind both of those units down. So then this is my turn. The spiders really don't have anything to do, so they're just going to crawl away and try to conserve their points. The Nashers charge the chaff up top. In my magic phase, I'm lowering the strength and AP on the Wild Huntsman again, just in case they want to come in, so they'll kill less orcs. And I get rerolls to hit onto his elk, which is really nice. And I get Rod of Battle off on the units, so they have +1 to hit for the ensuing combats that I'm anticipating are going to happen. So I'm feeling pretty good. I pretty much have the objective on lockdown. He doesn't have any scoring units near the ruins, and those crossbow orcs are just going to move up on turn 6 to capture that one. So I should win the objective. I'm probably, with him killing the trolls, now the points separation is less, but I'm still probably up a little bit on points. So I'm looking at probably like a 14-6 or a 15-5 win at this point. So I just got to finish out this last turn. This is from a misfire from the Git Launcher. The Nashers eat the Eagle, obviously, and then I decide to try and just go for a big overrun to hit into those archers, and I fail. So unfortunately, he is going to pick up those Nashers, but if I didn't make it in, he was just going to shoot them off anyway. So now he might charge in with the Dryads. They might blow up, do like an extra wound or something, but those Nashers already got their points back. There's not much else they're going to be able to eat. So that is, yeah, that's just another picture showing how it looks. You can see that the Nashers are pretty well surrounded at this point. Oh, and then the impossible happens. So I feed him the champ. He slaughters the champion, obviously, and I lose combat because he has charge. He does, the max overkill. He's a flank. I 3 ranks in a banner, and I fail my steadfast check. And one model runs down the entire unit of orcs, my general, my mage, and, if that weren't enough, because he chased them down, the crossbow orcs fail their panic test, and now are running towards the board edge. And spoiler alert, they do not rally, and they run off the board. Oh boy, that... So much for thinking I might have a comfortable win on this one. Yeah, then I think he tries to charge something here. He fails. And in the last couple turns of the game, I really don't have much left. I just have the goblins left. I have the Git Launcher. I have the Scrap Wagon. And with the Wild Huntsman, I think, run down the goblins. And he shoots off the Git Launcher and the Scrap Wagon. And that is the game. He ends up tabling me. Whoa! And gets a 21-point win. The only point he did not get was not getting the Dragon Egg in my deployment zone, and that is my 1 point, is when the trolls killed his Dryads with the Dragon Egg. Wow, what a game. Lots of swingy dice rolls, lots of action happening. This game was really fun. I had an absolute blast. Had a very tragic ending for me, though, clearly. So, MVPs. Obviously, his Elk Lord basically turned the whole game around on turn 5 from a loss to him to a huge win. So I think without a doubt that's his MVP. Not to mention that he also went through a unit of trolls. And then for me, the Nasher Herd. The Nasher Herd was just boss this game. They killed an Elk Lord. They killed a unit of 10 Sentinels. They killed an Eagle. They did quite a bit of damage, so really happy with their performance. As far as what I learned from this game, I think this is a good game to illustrate the balance between risk versus reward. Joe took quite a few risks, taking some of the baits and different charges that I offered him. And in some cases, they really didn't pay off for him. And in other cases, they did. Which the crucial one was the gamble at the end of the game, which is what won it for him. And for me, like, I think the one risk that I wouldn't have taken now in hindsight, obviously, is charging the GGI into the Huntsman. Just because his leadership is too valuable, I probably would have kept him back and just after the Trolls kill the Dryads, reform them to block the Wild Huntsman from charging anything else but the Trolls. So that was kind of my risk that didn't pay off. Yeah, so I this game is all about taking calculated risks. And in this case, Joe's paid off when it mattered. In terms of, I want to just say a quick note on Magic. I think that Magic is in a really good spot in the Ninth Age right now, and I think this is a great game that illustrated the power of Magic and how it influences games. And it was kind of an interesting dynamic because he obviously had really healing magic primarily, and I had primarily damage-causing magic. His healing magic prevented me from getting points for that Wild Huntsman unit that I nearly killed at the beginning of the game. He kept, healing guys that would fail DTs, like all this different stuff, so that was helping him. Spirit of the Wood was huge that he was able to get that off. And on my end, the Comet coming down, just wrecking a bunch of his units. I was getting buffs off in combat left and right, so it was hurting his effectiveness. So I felt like Magic had a really strong influence in this game also. So that's just something to consider. How you choose your Magic phases, what you're choosing to try to dispel, all those things really matter. Otherwise, that is it for this game. Obviously, I got knocked down big time to the bottom tables. We'll see if I can submarine my way back up to the top. And thanks for watching. Hit like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you on the next one.